Tonight, flight cancellations. Air Canada prepares for a work stoppage. Fraud alert. Fort St. John RCMP issue an employee scam warning. And asleep at the wheel. A Dawson Creek man charged with drugs and weapons offenses. Good evening and thank you very much for joining us. We begin tonight with concerning news for travelers who've booked connecting flights in Vancouver, Edmonton, and Calgary. Canada's largest airline appears to be headed towards a major work disruption. The union representing Air Canada's flight attendants has issued strike notice that will take effect Friday night. And as Judy Trin reports, to prepare for a work stoppage, the airline will begin canceling flights tomorrow.
Air Canada has started canceling flights to lock out its flight attendants, even before they walk off the job, leaving some in a desperate lurch. Marianne Barrow's weekend flight to LA was canceled. She may not get to her family reunion.
It's been 3 hours. I'm on hold, waiting. So I told my husband, drop me off at the airport. Maybe someone can help me from an Air Canada customer service. And they said they can't.
To explain why the airline is taking measures ahead of Saturday's strike deadline, Air Canada President Michael Rousseau says the airline regrets the impact of the disruption. He blames the disappointing conduct of CUPE's negotiators and says the risk of a strike can create chaos for travelers. The union representing 10,000 flight attendants said that Air Canada's offer doesn't keep pace with inflation.
The company came to us with a very minimal wage proposal. So they put 8% on the table in the first year, and that still would not pull our members out of the poverty level at the beginning.
Air Canada did offer a 38% increase in pay over 4 years, improved pension, ground pay, and crew rest, and an offer for binding arbitration. The airline will lose hundreds of millions of dollars if a strike can't be averted.
So they've struggled a bit with profitability the last quarter. So this is going to be something that will really hit the bottom line.
130,000 passengers could be impacted daily. For now, many remain on the side of the workers.
We think that they should get paid for what they're doing. If they're not getting paid for those hours boarding and deplaning, they should be paid for that.
For now, the federal government is staying on the sidelines, but offering mediators to help with negotiations. Federal Labor Minister Patty Hajdu says the best agreements are the ones the parties reach themselves. Judy Trin, CTV News, Ottawa.
And flights in and out of Fort St. John and Grand Prairie are not being affected by a potential work stoppage as Jazz Aviation operates flights on behalf of Air Canada. Well, to an update now on a cybersecurity incident affecting WestJet passengers. Back in June, the airline was victim of a data breach that saw personal and travel-related information stolen. WestJet says they've conducted a thorough investigation into the breach, and now they say a sophisticated and criminal third party is responsible for the attack. The airline adds it gained unauthorized access to their systems and obtained travel bookings and limited employee information. They add no credit and debit card numbers or account passwords were stolen. The company says they've added additional data security measures since the incident. The travelers affected by the breach will be contacted by WestJet. It's unclear if the person responsible was caught, but law enforcement has been contacted. CJDC-TV News has reached out to WestJet to ask if passengers in Grand Prairie and Fort St. John were affected, but the company says they can't answer our question. 26 stray cats flying from Fort St. John to the Lower Mainland in 2 separate rescue operations. 2 local nonprofits needing help transporting a group of cats facing an uncertain future. So, Canada Wings of Rescue stepping in with 2 separate flights to the Vancouver area. One of those flights transporting the most animals in recent years. The organization's communication manager saying rural communities don't offer the same access to shelters and animal welfare resources as bigger cities do. Cheryl Bream adds the organization appreciates the huge commitment of the 3 pilots who helped out. The emergency room at the Chetwynd Hospital was on diversion. The ER closing Tuesday evening at 8 o'clock. Northern Health saying normal operations resumed at 5 this morning. The health authority saying staffing challenges are once again to blame. Patients who are in need of life-threatening emergency care were being advised to call 911 to be transported to the nearest available hospital. It's the first hospital diversion in Chetwynd since mid-June. Alberta Health Services issuing a new potential measles exposure in Grand Prairie for the second time this week. On Tuesday, we reported a person with a confirmed case of the measles has visited the medical clinic at the Real Canadian Superstore on July the 28th. Well, today, AHS says an infected person was at the emergency room at the Grand Prairie Regional Hospital twice at the end of July. Health officials say the first exposure noticed happened on July 28th overnight from 8 p.m. to 1:15 a.m. They say it happened once again on July 30th from 12:45 to 5:50 in the afternoon. Alberta Health Services is asking anyone who may have been exposed to stay home and contact the measles hotline. The total number of measles cases in Alberta is now 1,745. Well, police are asking the public to be aware about a new scam targeting employees in Fort St. John. And police say there have been a number of similar incidents over the past month. 2 weeks ago, an employee of a store in the energetic city was targeted by a fraudster pretending to be their boss. The person convinced the employee to deposit $900 into a Bitcoin ATM to pay for a package delivery for the business. Well, by the time the unsuspecting employee realized that they had sent money to a fraudster rather than their boss, the money had been converted into Bitcoin and was then deposited into the fraudster's crypto wallet. Well, once money is converted into Bitcoin, there's an extremely low chance of tracing it and next to no chance of recovering the money. Police in Fort St. John say legitimate businesses are not going to ask you to pay for items or services with cryptocurrencies. And Fort St. John Mounties are asking for the public's help in finding a wanted woman. Tennis Patricia Lee Wellard is currently wanted for theft under $5,000 and criminal harassment. Lee Wellard is being described as a Caucasian female. She stands 5 feet 4 inches tall and weighs 141 pounds. The 39-year-old has brown hair and blue eyes. If you have any information on her whereabouts, you're being asked to contact the Fort St. John RCMP. A Dawson Creek man with a long criminal history has been arrested just north of Grand Prairie. Mounties say Fraser Pearson was arrested Saturday morning after being found slumped over the wheel in a vehicle in the middle of the road. Well, police add they found Pearson sound asleep, allegedly with drug paraphernalia in plain view. Investigators say they seized close to 120 grams of methamphetamine and fentanyl, along with drug trafficking paraphernalia. They claim some of the drugs were found in a backpack that was labeled, "Support your local drug dealer." Officers also seizing a loaded crossbow, a prohibited knife, and a flamethrower, along with just over $2,000 in cash. The 40-year-old is facing a number of drug and weapons charges. 2 years ago, the Dawson Creek RCMP were looking for Pearson on assault-related charges. At the time, they said he was considered armed and dangerous and actively avoiding capture. Pearson remains in police custody pending his next court appearance. Well, a mother from Alberta is warning other parents tonight about a terrifying online extremist network that targeted her teenage daughter. The group, known as 764, lures vulnerable youth through seemingly innocent video game platforms to manipulate and exploit them in some horrific ways. And a warning, some of the details in this story are disturbing. Terry Fakowski has the details.
This quiet rural community is the last place you'd expect a child to be targeted by a violent international extremist network, but that's the living nightmare unfolding for the mother of a 14-year-old girl in small-town central Alberta. CTV is not identifying her or the family's location for their safety.
She locks herself in her room. She doesn't want to associate with anyone in the home.
Her daughter struggled with her mental health for years, but things escalated to a frightening tipping point roughly a year ago.
She'd written on her wall in blood. She had cut herself here and carved on her legs.
She also discovered disturbing sexually exploitive pictures and conversations on her phone with a member of 764, an ideologically motivated child exploitation enterprise formed in 2021, named after the founder's zip code in Texas. The founder of the group, who was just 15 at the time, is now serving an 80-year prison sentence, and the FBI has charged other alleged leaders. A few teens have been charged here in Canada, but the RCMP says 764 operates under a number of different aliases, making it hard to pin down and remains a serious threat.
It is a combination of neo-Nazism, Satanism, and self-harm. They also call it accelerationism, which means basically trying to get to the point where it's anarchy.
Members use encrypted platforms like the instant messaging service Discord. They also use popular online games Roblox and Minecraft to recruit youth.
The most disturbing stuff that you can imagine. Not only are they getting kids to self-harm, but they're also convincing their kids to, kill and mutilate animals, family pets, abuse siblings.
She's told me she'll stab me in my sleep.
Desperate to protect her family, this mother took away her daughter's phone and devices, only to learn she was still accessing the platforms at school, and says seeking support from the school board, healthcare system, and police has been an exhausting uphill battle.
She doesn't think I care, but I'm doing this all because I love her.
Nobody has been charged, but she's not giving up. Terry Fikowski, CTV News in Central Alberta.
A petition aimed at keeping Alberta in Canada is making stops in Calgary this week. The Forever Canadian petition was launched earlier this month by Alberta's former Deputy Premier. It asks the question, do you agree that Alberta should remain in Canada? The petition needs almost 300,000 signatures, 10% of all registered voters, in order to be presented to the Alberta legislature.
So we need to have all of these signatures to present to her and say, we're not interested in leaving Canada. This is something you've made up in your head because it's not anything that the average person wants.
An opposing referendum question on Alberta's separation is now before the courts. The province's chief electoral officer asked for a judge to determine if it is constitutional. A decision is expected on that tomorrow. Well, now to the implications of that landmark court decision that we told you about last night that's pitting First Nations land claims against private property rights. The BC Supreme Court ruled the Cowichan First Nation has rights and title to a stretch of land in Richmond, and that's sparking opposition and political debate. Rob Buffum now on a case that's far from over.
Fallout from a bombshell BC Supreme Court decision on Cowichan Tribe's land title continues to reverberate.
I think it's probably one of the most significant decisions we've had in Aboriginal law over the past 35 years.
The recent decision awarded the Cowichan Tribe's fishing rights in the Fraser River and title to a swath of land in Richmond, where the Vancouver Island-based First Nation previously inhabited a village in the summer. The province is launching an appeal.
The ruling could have significant unintended consequences for fee simple private property rights in BC, and that must be reconsidered.
The judge in her 800-plus page decision held that Aboriginal title and private property rights, known as fee simple, can coexist, and that the Cowichan tribes could repossess that land, says this Aboriginal law expert.
It's the first decision that really fundamentally provides a remedy to First Nations to take back private land.
The province is one of 6 defendants, along with the Feds, City of Richmond, the Vancouver Fraser Port Authority, Tsawwassen First Nation, and Musqueam Indian Band. Its chief expects it too will appeal.
My phone lit up like a Christmas tree when the decision came out, and they all, our membership that were sending me saying, we're appealing this.
The court found Aboriginal title on land held by the Feds, province, and city. It also found title over private lands, including businesses and homes that aren't subject to an order, but is a finding experts say could apply to private property across BC.
The First Nation can go back to court and seek remedies like an ordinary landowner to have those landowners removed from their land.
The opposition Conservatives say the province should have negotiated this case, avoiding uncertainty over private property rights and protracted appeals.
I'm actually very concerned about how the chill that this project, or this court case, I should say, will put on British Columbia as an investable jurisdiction.
We have to work, of course, with First Nations to make sure that we move forward with this project, and we are.
The province says it's seeking a stay of the order pending its appeal.
Robert Buffum, CTV News.
All right, stay tuned. Noah will be right back with weather.